All right, very excited today to have Mr. ISAAC Moreno on the show. Welcome to BretB from OuterSpace in the show. First off, we're going to play some of the stuff that he's mixed and engineered, and we'll join ISAAC in just a little bit. All right. That was awesome, ISAAC. Let's see if I can pull you up here. How you doing, buddy?
All right. I'm doing great, man. Glad to be here.
There he is. Okay. Before we jump into the history and how we know each other, all that good stuff, I want to kind of continue the conversation we had on this project because we just saw the video, which was awesome. Production was awesome.
Thank you.
And I had no idea that this was like how do you say this? Some guy doing it himself.
So this is they started out as a band called Blank Pages,
Uh-huh.
and when they started to do research, they found out there were other bands out there by the name of Blank Pages, so they had to do a name switch. But this Daniel, who is the lead singer of the band, was he's pretty particular, only because he was it was his first go around. You know, they had released a single under Blank Pages, and they had a producer out of Nashville, and he felt that he had learned a lot from that experience. So then he just decided to do this project. Now he did the whole thing himself, background vocals, bass, guitar. He programmed the drums. I think the way he started was he had his brother play, and then he went through and tweaked. He captured all the MIDI notes and stuff like that, and then he would tweak where he wanted placements of stuff. So yeah, man, this guy, just incredible. It was a project that, you know, some projects like this, when you start from the beginning, I think there was a total of 12 tracks, but most projects like this will probably take like 6 months to flip around. And it took us about 1.5 years. But,
Wow.
you know, I'm really proud of it, and he's super proud of it. And that's the most important part, man, is that he feels good about the project that he put out. So
Yeah. That is crazy. So that is a ton of work. You know, I think sometimes we look at stuff sometimes and we're like, oh yeah, someone just knocked that out in their garage, or, you know, not this one, but like, and just to know that he did all the instruments.
Yeah.
And
I mean, just incredible. I think this one of the session counts. I think the session count was something like 90 something tracks
wow.
on one of the songs. So, I mean, he really, and the cool thing was he left a lot of space for things. He was a super creative guy. So yeah.
Yeah. So on that note, and I know that we're just jumping right into it here, but what, he left a lot of space. What does that leave for you? So somebody explain to people what the process is, first of all. So I want you to mix my record.
Well, I mean, if somebody arranges really well, mixing a song is super simple. Because if the arrangement is well, then all the pieces kind of fit together. And literally at that point, it's just kind of creating a balance and kind of making sure that everything is heard. If a song isn't arranged really well, then what you go through a process of, you know, you having to work with the artist and saying, hey, we need to pull this part out, maybe in this section here, let's drop it down to the acoustic guitar and then bring it back up with electric guitar or something. So that's kind of what, you know, the best thing you can start with is obviously a great arrangement.
Right.
But if you don't have that, in, you know, then you're just kind of working a little harder, kind of chiseling away at the pieces. I mean, it's just like Michelangelo, right? Took a piece of marble and started chiseling away until, you know, he said David was on the inside and he was just knocking the pieces out.
Yeah.
So kind of the same thing with some of the song production is that you have to go through and just kind of chisel away and work with the artist. And sometimes some of the parts are, you know, they're very like, you know, I really like this part. I really like to hear it. And sometimes you have to tell an artist, like, you know, maybe not for this song, but let's save it for the next song or something. Or let's take this lick and put it in another song or something.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of going back and forth to try to create that partnership and that relationship. But yeah, it's, you know, not right off the bat, you don't just come in and just start chiseling things. You have to work with the artist and just kind of make it, you know, make it a team effort.
Yeah, that's it feels like you're creeping into a producer role there on some of those.
Yeah, sometimes.
A little bit,
but,
you know.
But you know, not everybody's a professional musician that I work with or a professional artist. And so I feel like God has kind of placed me in a situation where I am working with people to kind of help develop and train and, you know, help them do their craft better. So if I step into that role, but I step into that role lightly, I won't overstep the bounds, but I'll definitely make suggestions and then allow the artist take the lead from there.
Yeah, that's super awesome. I'm sure we're going to get into that process here in a little bit. So I want to go back, and so you and I have known a lot of the same people forever. We just haven't known each other forever. Because I remember
Kansas City is a big, small city.
Yeah.
It's
yeah, dude, I I don't know how many people throughout the last 20, 15 years have said, "Hey man, do you know Isaac Moreno?" I'm like, "No, but everybody keeps asking me that same question."
Well, I hope it was all good
It was
stuff that you
good.
kept
Yeah, it
saying.
was
Okay.
like I don't know, it was mixing or live sound too, because you do live sound as well.
Yeah, I tend to do both only because I like the thrill of live sound.
Mm.
Because I have one shot
Oh, dude.
to
Yeah.
impress a group of people, and I get an instant feedback upon the work that I do.
Hmm.
Whereas studio stuff, you spend a year and a half mixing a project or working on a project, and sometimes you don't get to see the results of that.
Yeah.
So, with live sound, I think it's cool because I think it kind of ups my mixing game
Hmm.
because it allows me to make decisions quickly.
Yeah.
So, when you're mixing live sound and you hear an issue or problem, you're jumping on it right away to try to fix it or repair it or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I love it. I love both.
Yeah. I saw a TikTok video of you did, which Isaac's on TikTok and he has some cool stories on there too. So it's kind of behind the scenes stuff, maybe that I
Yeah.
don't know, we may or may not get into. But anyway, it was a story. I don't know. I think it was on TikTok. You were talking about the live stream jazz show taught you how to mix better because it was so well. It's like this, we like there's so many things that could go wrong right now and have gone wrong.
Right.
There's something about that maybe that makes me a little mental, but there's something about that gives me like an endorphin rush. So
Right.
tell me why the
The
mixing
jazz show
live
thing.
yeah.
So it was a live jazz show that we did, radio show, and the band would change. So it's not like I would have the same band. The only person that was the same week after week was the lead guy, the band director. And he played clarinet. So, from one week I could have clarinet, drums, bass, and piano. Following week I could have clarinet, guitar, bass, and drum, and it would always change. And they didn't have it in the budget for us to come in early and kind of do like a pre-mix and kind of do line checks and all that kind of stuff. So literally I would drop in, sit behind an analog console. So there wasn't digital. You couldn't do an instant recall or anything like that. And literally mix on the fly, adding verbs and, EQing and, each of the piano players, the way they would touch the piano or choose whatever sound they would choose was different. And with jazz, you always have to carve space for all the instruments to kind of sit.
Yeah.
And each of them have to have the ability to speak, and the dynamics are, so wide, and the console that I was using didn't have dynamics. So I had to, come up with a creative way of how to capture sound in Pro Tools, and capture some of those dynamics and use a little bit of a compression or something like that, but super light, but to be able to make it presentable for radio stations so that they could broadcast it.
And super quick.
Yeah.
You had to do all this.
Quick. Yeah. All on the fly, super quick. And and it had to sound great because, some of these guys are, they're legends around Kansas City. So, they didn't want to sound bad.
Yeah. Imagine that. I know as a bass player, just the way a bass players hit the strings with their fingers is completely different. Right. So like just being able to.
Oh yeah. And I could have 1 week a stand-up bass and the following week an actual electric bass.
Yeah, which is
so
completely different.
To figure out, completely different sounds and textures and tones. And you have to try to figure out where they live, and you have to do it quick.
Totally. I thought that was awesome. So, I'm going to hit these pictures here. This right here. I'm going to bounce out of here. This right here is a very cool picture. It shows some of the work you've done, which is very impressive.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, that's kind of my picture resume of some of the projects that I've worked on, from video games to, some animations for DreamWorks and the such. So, yeah.
How did you get into that part of the business?
So that was a time of transition. Mm-hmm. I was coming back from Nashville and didn't know where I was going to go. I was probably going to end up going back to California, living with my family. and God brought us back here to Kansas City. When I was here the first time, I worked for a gentleman by the name of Don Miller, who had a recording studio called Airborne Audio Productions. Since then, the building is closed, but when I moved back, he still had the business, and there was a client who had contacted him and said, "Hey, you know what? I need to do syncing to picture ADR stuff." And I told Don, I was like, "Look, man, I can do it." And if I didn't know how to do it, I was going to figure out how to do it.
Yeah.
Because obviously, one, I wanted the business, but
Yeah.
still, I didn't even know what the project was. I was just like, "Yeah, let's do it." So he agreed to do it. And when I got the script and the files for it, it was Lego Star Wars.
Wow.
And that's when I met Tom Kane. And so from there, it just kind of snowballed, you know, just kind of like whenever Tom has his own studio in his house, and he's able to record, you know, kind of the initial seasons or episodes or whatever it is, he can do it on his own. But when it started to get really technical, where he had to sync to picture and all that kind of stuff, he was like, "Look, man, I just want to be the talent. You be the engineer."
Gotcha.
And so then those projects started to come through. And so with Tom, I started doing movie trailers. We did movie trailers for all sorts of movies. I did stuff with him for Disney, Walt Disney World. He was the voice of the tram at Walt Disney World during Christmas. The Batman video game I did with him. The Marvel game, working with Marvel, that, you know, honestly, that freaked me out.
Yeah.
Star Wars freaked me out because I'm a huge Star Wars nerd. So,
Yeah.
But then another voice actor here in Kansas City by the name of Victor Rader Wexler, he started auditioning for DreamWorks, and we started getting some of those gigs. So we did Boss Baby for the next Netflix series. We did Troll Hunters, Netflix series, just all these Netflix series for DreamWorks. So yeah, that's how it kind of started. It all started with Tom on a session that, you know, I said I would do, and I would figure out how to do it. So
yeah, man, boy, there's a lesson in that, man. You know, I got into. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I mean, you know, it's true. I mean, sometimes you just kind of say yes to something and then, you know, work really hard to figure out how to pull it off.
Yeah. Especially if, you know, you need to pay the rent. You're like, oh, yeah,
right.
I know how to do that.
Or you were going to say that's how you got started in.
Oh, video. That's how I got started in video. I was doing web design stuff. And my first passion is music, but I went to a little bit of school for web design, and then one of my graphic design clients was like, "Hey, man, can you do video?" I'm like, "Yes." For one, it sounded exciting, and I always like to, you know, try things I don't, you know how to do, so that's part of it. But man, I got into it. I'm like, this is awesome. I dig this, you know. And we were shooting with bad cameras, and, you know, footage was like pretty subpar, but it was exciting. You know, it was an exciting world to get into it, and for video.
I mean,
go ahead.
It's another way of being creative, right?
Yeah, you know? Totally. Yeah. Sweet, man. Let's bounce to this next one here. I don't know if I got these in order, but
oh, bro, whatever order.
Oh, that's a great picture, by the way.
Ocean Way Studios in Nashville.
Yeah.
So I have a buddy who lives in, well, obviously I lived in Nashville for a while, but I have a buddy that still lives there in Nashville. And his friend is like one of the managers there at Ocean Way. And so this was, I got to go and tour the facility and strike up a deal that, you know, if I ever needed to use the space and stuff like that, that he'd give me a special rate to come in and take care of some stuff. So yeah, no, Ocean Way, man, that was one of those moments for me where you grow up, you know, doing this type of stuff, and you see these pictures in the magazines of all these awesome studios, and Ocean Way was one of those ones that it was like, you know, it was amazing. So, you know, to be able to stand in all the rooms and all the studios and stuff like that, it was incredible. So, yeah.
So did you get your start? Okay, I'm gonna go way back.
Okay, go with
Where
that.
did you get your start? Why did you get into engineering?
So, growing up, Dad always had a recording studio in the house.
Hmm.
So, started with reel-to-reel machines.
Yeah.
I have an old picture somewhere, and it's me, and I'm probably about 3 or 4 years old, and my job was to hit record and play for my dad, and then hit rewind, and then record and play.
Oh, that's
Engage the
awesome.
next track and hit record and play.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So, that was my gig. And from that, I got into music, and so I started playing keyboard, and I started playing with bands. And I should have sent you this picture, but it's a picture of me, and it's my high school picture, and I am leaning up against a keyboard, and I got long hair.
Long hair. I want to see it. Find it. Send it to me right now.
Send it to you. I don't know where it's at. I have to find it. But bro, I was all rocked out. I had taken lessons. Well, I say lessons, but I had taken like a little workshop with David Bryan, keyboard player for Bon Jovi.
Yeah.
I met him at the NAMM show in California, and we spent about an hour together, and he showed me how to play keyboards for a rock band. So,
in an hour.
In an hour, he's just like, man, this is what you want to do. Put your hands like this. If the guitar player's doing this, this is how you want to play. Kind of chord structure and different inversions of the chords, so that way you'd stay out of the way. And so, I played in bands all throughout high school, and after that, I just kind of was like, Dad started to put bigger consoles in the studio and better reel-to-reel machines, and I really liked it.
Yeah.
And I hated the band fights. I hated how the band would fight over something. And I was like, you know what? I'll be the guy behind the glass. I'll take care of all the other stuff.
Interesting.
And so that's how it started. And really, I cut my teeth with Don Miller at Airborne Audio. When I started working there, I was the gopher. I was the guy that was going to get coffee. I was the guy that was going to, cleaning the bathrooms. I was the guy rolling cables after sessions and setting up sessions and taking care of clients, getting lunch orders, that sort of thing. And little by little, Don would start giving me different projects. Yeah. And, as I grew and as he taught me and as he mentored me, I started running after that. So, but yeah, it was, that's how it started.
Was that, so was your dad's studio on the West Coast or?
Yes, California. I was born and raised in California until I was about, I think 2021 is when I moved to Kansas the first time.
Okay. And then that's when you met Don. That's when
I met Don. Then after being here in Kansas for a while, went back to California for a stint. There, when I went back the second time, I did production for like Martina McBride, George Carlin, Scott Stapp.
Wow.
Wow. There was a Hispanic artist named BretB. I forgot his last name. Oh my gosh. But I did all sorts of production stuff.
Yeah.
And then also worked for churches. And then after that, God called me out to Nashville. Was out in Nashville for 3.5 years. I say I visited Nashville because we were out on the road so much that I was never home.
Yeah. Yeah.
And but lived in Nashville for a couple of years and then moved back here to Kansas City. So yeah.
Yeah. Here's a road picture. Is that a road picture?
Oh yeah. Well, that picture right there is actually at a church here in Kansas City. But yeah, that's kind of what it looks like for me.
Yeah. So who were you on the road with when you were in Nashville?
I was on the road with, so I was Seventh Day Slumbers, front of house guy. And by the end of it, I was a front of house guy, road manager, tour manager, and bus driver.
Wow. Dude, that escalated quickly.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I was the first one off the bus and the last one on.
All right, so we got to talk. How did that happen? I got to know that. Because
how did that happen? Well, it happened because I cared about the band so much, and I wanted to take care of the guys, and I just wanted them to be able to step out of the bus, do what they do, and get back in the bus.
Yeah.
And some of the managers that they would have were not quality guys. So I just would be like, hey man, I'll step into the role for a bit until you find somebody. Well, then I would end up hanging on to the role.
Yeah.
And when we would move into when we were on tour and I was the tour manager, then I was responsible for not only my band, but all the opening acts as well.
Yeah.
And again, just one of those things is just, I love doing things to allow people to do what they do best. And so, I would take care of them and all that kind of stuff. And then it moved into, hey man, we need a bus driver. Will you step in and, drive half the drives? And it's like, yeah, man, I'll step in. And eventually got down to the point where I was now I will say this, I took too much on. I probably shouldn't have taken that on, because I would literally get off the bus, unload the trailer, set everything up, do sound checks, take a 15 to 20 minute nap, depending on how long it took us to set up, do the show, take a little nap while we tore down, loaded the trailer, and then drove to the next city.
Wow.
So it was a lot of hard work, but that's how it ended up being. It's just, I wanted to make sure that the guys were taken care of, and not only the band, but also their families and all that kind of stuff. So
that's a servant heart for sure.
No, well, thank you.
So yeah, there's a lot of good stuff in there. So like, what do you do now to say no? Like if you reach that threshold, you're like, because I had a habit of saying yes too much in my life, and then you get to this point, you're like, whoa, I'm up here, I should have said no down here,
Well, that's kind of interesting that you asked that. It got to a point where I did say no, and I was offered a gig with Ed Sheeran. I was supposed to be Ed Sheeran's front of house guy.
Dang, dude.
And I was supposed to be his tour manager. And so his normal tour manager was going to jump off the road for like a stint, and because he was getting married, so he was going to get married, do his honeymoon, and then join Ed back on. So then I got offered the position to be his manager or his road manager and be his sound guy. And I sat back and I thought about it, and I was just like, you know what? I got to say no. Now, this is the time when Ed Sheeran had just come out. His first single had just released. He was getting ready to do a United States tour. He didn't even have a tour bus. He was actually in one of those passenger vans.
Yeah.
He was van and trailer. So I was going to drive the van and trailer, manage the guy, and also do his front of house.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, just like you say yes to everything, but at some point you have to say no.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I mean, there were projects that I said no to. But I think saying no for me on that project opened the doors for everything else that I'm doing now. So, people have asked me, do you regret it? And it's like, no, because I've met the people that I needed to meet. I'm working on the projects that I need to work on, and I get to be a part of things. And the most important thing for me was, I'm not on the road anymore.
Yeah. I'm
home. I'm a dad. I'm a husband.
Yeah.
I'm able to serve my church community. I'm able to serve my community. So, I think I'm doing just fine.
Yeah.
I don't need to be on the road with Ed. So
yeah, doing what you're supposed to be doing.
Right.
I'm going to get to this here.
That's Quad Studios in Nashville.
Quad Studios. Cool.
So I got hired. This is when we weren't out on the road. I got hired by a buddy of mine who was doing a Latin band. And he said, what studio do you want to work in? I was like, look, I just want a place that has a Neve console.
Seriously.
And they're like, cool, okay. They're like, we're going to Quad Studios. And I'm like, great. And I guess this is the Elvis room, or it's either the Neve room or the Elvis room or something like that there at Quad. And oh my gosh, what a great time. We got great sounds out of that console. I did a board mix after that, and the whole band just loved it. But the lead singer, who he was like, no, man, I want it to sound more modern. I want it to, I want some distortion in my voice. I want this, I want auto tune. And in my opinion, I think the song got destroyed afterwards. But, the console mix was definitely fun, just right off the board. So.
That's interesting. Let's talk a little bit about that, because we talked before we went live about is the client always right? I mean, the
Well,
easy answer is yes, right? It's like,
yeah. The easy answer is yes, and you have to understand. I think for me, you have to understand what role do I play a part of the team.
right.
So it's are they looking at me as the guy that pushes the buttons, or are they looking at me as the guy to help be part of the creative process?
Yeah, that's a good point.
And so once you know that part where you stand, then you don't get into any more fights,
Yeah,
because you know what your role is.
yeah, totally.
Um, so is a client always right? Now, I can always disagree at the end of the day and say, look, I'm not happy with that. I used to do this. If I wasn't happy with something, I would make up some name and say, hey, when you put me in the credits, put me as this, you know.
Yeah.
I think I called it like Jose's Taco Shop or something like that. Recorded at Jose's Taco Shop. So if you ever see that anywhere on anybody's albums, yeah, that was me. But I don't know, man. But
Oh, that's
I
awesome.
had to. I wanted to be proud of what I did,
Sure.
and so through the process, what you end up learning is how to communicate with your clients,
Yeah.
and it's like you start learning how to be a team player. And when you disagree with something, with a client, the most important thing is communication. Being able to talk, what your ideas are, being able to share that, being able to be okay with being shot down.
Yeah.
But it's in we're all creatives, we're artists, right? We all
Right.
see something differently. I remember, back in the day when I was starting to do all this mixing stuff, I had read an article back in Mix Magazine where they had taken 3 top engineers and they gave them the same exact song to mix, and 3 different mixes came out, because in a sense they're artists as well, and they're painting a picture of that music or that sonic landscape, how they see it or how they view it.
Yeah.
Now, was any of them wrong? No, but it's how they saw it. And so same thing happens when you're, as an engineer, you're working with an artist. you know I may see it a certain way, and my goal is to either help shape and mold it, or and get my it's not so much just my vision, but I want to make their vision evident.
Uh-huh.
But if I can add some of my own, personal touches to it, that helps me feel like I'm a part of that process. So
Yeah, totally. It's an interesting process because I mean, when I started, I just wanted to do things my way, like most people, creatives do. They're like, "Oh,
right.
this is cool," and then they find out it's not cool because the client doesn't like it. But then you get to the point where you're kind of like, I don't. This was my progression in that. I got to the point where I was kind of like, well, whatever. I'll do whatever
Yeah.
you say, and became kind of stale, you
Right.
know. And then I moved on, kind of matured, maybe past that to a point of like learning how to communicate is exactly what you just said. Like,
Mm.
hey, um, we can do whatever you want, but here's what I was thinking for this part. You tell me if
Right.
this fits with your vision or if it doesn't, you know? And then if it doesn't, just let it go, right? But I think like over time, people get safe with each other. And if you continue to work with people on a regular basis, sometimes they just like, hey,
It
they themselves are
melts.
like, I need to let Isaac do his thing because
Right.
my suggestions weren't as good as his sometimes, and you know what I mean. They come to this conclusion
Sure.
themselves, or and my this my decisions aren't always perfect and always good. So I've learned
Right.
like presidents of companies will change and they'll come in and be like, hey, I'm really particular about this, and I'll kind of be like, I don't know, I'm gonna do it internally. I'm gonna do it for you because this is what you ask, and then later
Right.
on, I'm like, wow, that was a really good idea.
Yeah.
You
No,
know,
and you have to find those moments where you're like, not all my ideas are the best ideas,
yeah,
and have to be okay with that. I mean, I remember when, again, early on, you mix something and you feel like you put your whole soul into
yeah,
mixing it, and then the artist comes back and goes, well, I don't like this and I don't like that, and immediately the creative in you goes, what?
Yeah.
You don't like what I created? You don't like what I did? You got to be kidding me. You're stupid.
Yeah,
And
this is
then you realize
amazing.
it's part of a creative process. It's
Yeah.
okay. It's okay.
Yeah, and everybody sees things differently, you
Yeah.
know. Yeah, that's awesome. Balance to here. Let me get back here. Is this
Yes. So this is me again at a church. That's an Allen and Heath console there.
Allen and Heath console?
Yes, sir.
You spend a lot of
So
time in churches, bro. What's up with that?
So my biggest passion is helping churches succeed,
Hmm.
helping church techs succeed. So I like going around teaching and training people about audio production and production in general. And that's kind of one of my side gigs. Not only do I do the studio stuff, but I love teaching. I love helping people be better at what they want to do. Now, I'm not saying that I know everything or that I know it all, but at 45 years old, you've done some stuff.
Yeah.
You've messed up a couple times.
You've made some mistakes.
You've made some mistakes, and with so many churches that they're trying to get into this whole production and all that kind of stuff. A lot of them just don't have the budgets to hire some, and I don't want to say, because I'm the best, but a guy like me to come in and handle all that stuff.
Yeah.
So if I can teach and train and develop people, man, that's what it's all about. It's about, furthering the kingdom, and it's about helping people succeed, and at the end of the day, when that engineer that I taught feels good about what they're doing and they put together a product that, is presentable. I mean, how much joy, that's just so much joy for me to see the joy in their face and how they can take pride in the work that they're doing now. So
It's awesome. So along those lines, we have a question from Mr. Aaron Wesley. Aaron.
Hey, Aaron.
Isaac, if you give one pro mixing mastering tip, what would it be? Just one, buddy.
One mixing mastering tip: train your ears.
Yeah.
That's probably the biggest thing that most people don't do, is train their ears. And what I mean by that is not only learning frequencies where things lie, spread your frequency spectrum, where each of the instruments sit, but also how to hear compression, how to hear reverbs, delays, all that kind of stuff. Training your ears to hear these specific things. One of the tools that, so when I did go to college for this, one of the tools our professor had us do, or one of the tricks he had us play with, was, back in the day, your home stereo had a graphic equalizer. Okay, everybody's using their phones nowadays for listening, but at least when I was growing up, we had graphic equalizers on our home stereo systems. And I took all the faders and I pulled them all down, and one by one I would bring up each of the frequency bands, 30 hertz, 60 hertz, 80 hertz, whatever was laid out. And I would listen to what was in that band, what was happening in that band. Was it the kick drum? Was the kick drum hitting? Where did the kick drum live in that frequency range? Where did the vocal live in those frequency ranges? Where did the reverb, where was I hearing the reverb come back at? Where was I hearing the delay in all those frequency spectrums? And so, like I said, the biggest thing is to train your ears, and doing stuff like that. Even so, now, if you have a DAW, you can basically do it in a DAW, pull in a song, one of your favorite songs, and go through with a graphic EQ. If you have a graphic EQ plugin, or even an EQ plugin, and go through and just solo the bands out and just start raising each of the frequencies, or sweep the frequencies. And that will allow you to hear what's happening in that range. Listen with headphones, listen on your studio speakers. So that way your ears are trained, and then you can tell what your headphones are hearing and what your speakers are producing. All that kind of, you may even find out that you have a resonant frequency in the room that you're mixing in. And you'll know that from now on. You're like, oh, okay, this frequency at 180 hertz resonates the room. The whole room starts to shake when I hit that frequency. Then you start realizing, if that frequency is resonating too much in this room, I may be adding too much of it.
Yeah. That's great advice. What was I going to say? I wanted to talk a little bit about, there's been a push for I think workshops and courses, online courses are huge, and I think they're
Hmm.
awesome. But I've seen lately where people are like, not another workshop, just do something, right? They're like,
Yeah,
just get busy and mix, just get busy and make something because you will learn more
right,
by like doing it wrong so many times that you learn how to do it right.
right. And that's I wholeheartedly believe that, get in there, make the mistakes,
Yeah,
especially now for some of the churches that I work with, a lot of them have digital consoles. And what I tell them is like, look, make the mistakes. You can always hit recall and go right back to where you were,
yeah,
or undo or whatever it is.
yeah,
And, you know, but yeah, you're right. Go in there, start tweaking knobs, make things happen.
yeah,
You'll learn what not to do.
yeah,
And
totally.
that's extremely valuable.
Yeah. So if people, churches, or anybody for that matter, needs consultation, you do that.
Yes, I will do consultation. I
Cool.
try to help out as many people as I can. I'm so open to it. So yeah,
Yeah, it
like I said, I just
sounds
want to see
like
people succeed.
yeah, it sounds like a passion too. It's not just something that you do. It's like you have a passion for people to get better and improve. And I see that on your social media stuff. So
Yeah,
if any
yeah.
mixers are out there, follow Isaac. He's on TikTok. You want to give me a rundown where you're at on social
Oh
media?
my gosh. I'm on Instagram under Isaac_Moreno. I know I'm on Twitter. I think it's Isaac 1073. Um, I'm on Facebook, and I'm on TikTok. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
you'll find me. You'll see this face.
yeah. And you have some cool stories too, like meetings with different famous people and stuff like that. So you have some,
Uh, so one of them that I shared on TikTok was working with John Mayer.
yeah,
We had uh, so Airborne, really nice studio. It had a Neve console in it, Studio A, Studio B, and the Studio C. And John had just was doing a radio tour. Is basically what he was doing. And so the radio station that he was coming to wanted to do like a little promotion private concert. And so they contacted us and said, hey, we'd love to partner with you guys. What can we do? We'll bring artists through as we want to do these radio promotions. John had just gotten off a flight from England or the UK or something. And so he was a little jet lagged, came into the studio, great guy, fantastic guitar player. But this is before he won his first Grammy
huh,
for Best Male Artist. And so he was doing the tour for Room for Squares was the album. And yeah, man, just a real professional, just played the snot out of his guitar. And, we basically, the radio stations did a little promo where, you and a friend could have a private performance by John Mayer. So we probably had maybe 40 people inside Studio A. We set up, a little sound system in there, and then we
yeah,
tracked it for the or not only tracked it for the radio station so the radio station could broadcast it, but we also tracked it for the record label. So I don't know whatever happened to those recordings,
yeah.
but
That's
but
awesome.
we did stuff like that with for John Mayer, for Ben Folds, Ben Harper, um,
Yeah. Wow. That's cool.
uh,
Yeah.
yeah, Natalie Merchant,
Yeah.
uh, who the Ataris, All
Uh-huh.
American Rejects.
Yep.
Um, yeah, I mean,
That's a
just a
cool
bunch of
thing,
people.
man. It's like some, I bet that there's some learning that went along with that too. Like,
Yeah, you learn how to again, work with different types of people,
yeah.
meet their needs and be able to give them a product at the end of the day that they're happy with. So yeah,
Yeah, totally. So along those lines, do you want to talk about where you're at right now with the
sure.
airborne stuff? Because you worked at Airborne a long time.
Yeah, worked at
Airborne's a,
Airborne for a really long time. Took a little break, moved out to California for a while, then moved back to moved back. And so when I moved back, I was working for Airborne again, like I had mentioned. And that's how I started getting those gigs to do the ADR work and stuff.
mm,
Um, but Airborne has kind of decided to go into retirement.
mm,
And as of January 1st, my company, Kingdom Come Studios, um, was birthed. So now I take care of pretty much all the clients from Airborne Audio. And yeah, man, I'm, trying to hit the ground running, trying to, add more clientele. This spring, hopefully this spring, I'm going to do a whole build out a studio in my garage. I actually have some blueprints of a studio that, yeah, it's already acoustically designed and laid out and all that kind of stuff. So
That's super
I'm
exciting,
excited.
man. That's super exciting. That leads me to how did, well, I mean, I know the live stuff, COVID pretty
Right.
much tore that apart, but what did the pandemic do to your business?
Well, with the pandemic, I really took a really big hit. So a lot of my clientele, even from the ad agencies and stuff like that, were smaller businesses, and they serviced small businesses. So all those clients that I had that were small businesses, a lot of them shut their doors.
Mm.
And so then, which in turn, the ad agencies shut their doors. So it really stripped me a lot. What I started doing was I started mixing or post-production mixes for churches. So for their worship services and stuff like that. So they
Mm.
would record their stuff and then they would send it to me and I would mix it and then they would sync it back up to their video so they would so they could play it online. So that was at like the start of the pandemic. But then, some of the other stuff started to fall off as well as LA was shut down. So all the DreamWorks stuff, stopped. All the Lucasfilm, Disney, all that kind
Mm.
of stuff stopped as well. And not only that, Victor is in that age bracket that was, very susceptible to catching it. So he didn't want to leave his house and didn't want anybody to come into his house. So, we lost all those auditions and things like that. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I've had to learn how to pivot myself. And so that's kind of why I started moving towards helping churches
Hmm.
even more, because again, they're trying to do this streaming thing. And I'm going to say this, and I hope it doesn't come off the wrong way. There's a lot of businesses out there that are creating these mixed templates
Yeah.
for churches to
I've seen
use.
those.
And I think it's great. I mean, it's a business, it's helping, it is helping people. But what I feel sad for are some of these churches that buy these templates and don't understand what they're doing or how they actually work. To say that this is a kick drum processing channel is one thing. But that processing that you created is for that particular drummer or for that particular drum shell. Right. So then you get it into a church with somebody who's doesn't understand that you have to hit consistently on that kick drum,
Yeah.
and, maybe not have the best quality shells. That EQ or that processing may not work.
Yeah.
And so what I do is I come and I fill those gaps. So I started visiting churches and going, okay, let's go through a rehearsal. I'll help you set up, what sounds best for your musicians
Uh-huh.
and for your church and how you work. And
Yeah.
how you operate, because I mean, not everybody's Bethel, not everybody's Red Rocks, not everybody's Hillsong.
Right.
You may be covering some of the material, but you're not playing it the same way. You may even have arranged it a little bit differently. You may be playing with tracks. You may not be
Yeah.
playing with tracks. So taking all those things into consideration, and I try to create programs and stuff that's based for your specific environment. So
That's awesome, man. Adapt. You're
yeah.
adapting.
I
Which
have to adapt, and then still on the side, occasionally now I'm on websites like soundbetter.com, Air Gigs. I'm on Fiverr,
yeah.
trying to and I've gotten a couple jobs from that for mixing singles, and
Sweet.
I'm working with a guy right now who has 9 songs, and we're getting ready to mix his album and stuff like that. So I'm doing whatever I can to shift and work with people, and so I guys who are working in Logic or Ableton and all that kind of stuff, getting all that stuff transferred over to Pro Tools and being able to
Yeah.
work with them. So yeah, I'm ready to work with anybody and everything, man.
That's awesome, man. You have a wealth of experience.
Well,
Um,
thank you.
I'm gonna go to this one real quick here. Michael
Mr.
Tate.
Tate.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, back in the day, I was in a hip hop group called K2S.
You were in a hip
And
hop group?
yes, I was. I was a
What?
keyboard player
Oh, dude. I was
for a hip hop group.
I was gonna ask you to freestyle, but maybe.
No, 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 no. I was not the lyricist. I was the guy pushing the buttons.
Okay.
Um, and we were out about the same time that DC Talk was out,
Mm,
and um, we had gotten traction. At one point, we had even gotten a Dove Award for one of our songs.
nice.
Um, but Michael Tate to me was always like the Christian Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
And when I moved to Kansas City the first time, I worked with his sister Linda Randall, who's actually like signed with the Gaithers, and now I'm like Linda's audio guy. So whenever she does anything or anything like that, so Michael and I have developed a friendship, a relationship throughout the years. But yeah, no, great guy. I remember touring with him when I was with Seventh Day Slumber, and we were the opening band for Newsboys. And when he saw me, he was like, "Oh my gosh!" He goes, "You're that guy from Kansas City, the guy who works with my sister." And I was like, "Yeah, yeah."
That's awesome, man.
So he remembered me, from that time, and yeah. So whenever he's in town, we try to hang out. We try to do, we do stuff. Or Linda always hires me. Like we did this picture here is for the presidential Christmas tree lighting, and we did one of a song for the presidential Christmas tree lighting. So yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Um, yeah, I mean, dude, like, there's some people that can sing, and there's some people that can sing, right?
Right.
That guy, that guy can sing. Like,
Yeah.
I don't care. He can sing the paint off the walls. Um,
It's such control of his vocal.
yeah, and the
I mean,
texture of
super
his
good.
voice is crazy good. So,
Yeah.
anyway, we had another mixing question from Aaron,
Sure.
and before we move on, I hit that.
Yeah.
When approaching a mix, what instrument do you tackle first?
I'm a drum guy.
Mhm.
I like to make my drums slamming and hitting. So I will, and the other fact that, most of the time with drums, you have anywhere from, 8 to 16 tracks. So I try to condense that down. So I'll mix the drum kit to where I'm getting it to where I want it to sound. And then I subgroup it down to a single fader. So then at that point, I'm just moving one fader for a drum kit rather than 8 or 16. So yeah, first thing I hit is the drums. I want to make those slamming. And then the second thing that would fall in the line would be bass. I want to make sure bass and drums are lining up together and doing what they need to do, and they're staying out of each other's way. After that, I will drop in guitars and kind of start filling the sonic space. Then I'll move to keys, and again, just trying to find spaces for everybody to sit. And then I'll drop the vocal in and compress the snot out of it. No, just kidding. No, and then I'll move to vocals and BGVs and stuff.
Yeah.
And I try to make it all sit and marry. Now, is that the right way? It's not the wrong way. It's just my way, how I attack it. And I think that's the biggest lesson to learn when you're learning mixing techniques from anybody, even on YouTube, is, all these different techniques, everybody does it differently. And it's what works best for you. So don't get caught in that headspace of like, I have to do it this way, or this is the only way to do it. I probably have 5 or 6 different mixing techniques that I use for different styles of music. I have one set where, I will, trigger, I'll add triggers to the drums and all that kind of stuff and blend all that stuff in. And there are other instances where I don't. Or, I'll duplicate a vocal and saturate the snot out of it and then blend that in or something. And sometimes I won't.
Yeah.
It all depends on the style. Whatever serves the song, I guess, is basically what it comes down to. Whatever makes the song sound best. But yeah.
Do you always use triggers, or is it just depending on how?
Well,
good
one,
the
it
drums
always
sound?
depends on how well the drum kit was recorded.
Yeah.
I always, so if somebody's sending me something, I'll take a listen to what I have. So I always look at what I have. And if the engineer did a great job, I want to showcase what that engineer did as work, because it's an art. It's an art to capture drums. It's an art to capture any instrument.
Totally.
So I look at that first to say, what were they trying to do? What does this sound like? Also, I believe, drummers spend hours, days, months looking for the right drum kit, the right shells. They spend all this money to get the sound that they want. And so I try to work with that. And if I feel that it's not serving the song, then I will add triggers to it. But yeah, it's not an all the time thing. It just depends on, if the guy only had SM57s to track his drum kit, which is not bad, but it's not going to get him the sound that he's looking for.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Thank you, Aaron, for that question.
Yeah. Thank you, Aaron.
I'm going to go to a fun picture here.
All right.
Well, they're all fun, but this one is particularly fun.
So one of the other jobs I do, not only do all this studio stuff, but I also do on-location audio for films and for narrations and stuff like that. So I'll go out and, work with. So this was a specific client. And the running joke was always, Isaac, you're in the way. Isaac, you're in the way. Mike's in the way. I was like, that's it. Forget it. I'm going to wear a green suit and you guys can just key me out.
That's awesome.
And obviously this was a narration day. We were just doing narration. So there was no need for me to hold the microphone. But as they were recording, I was slipping on the suit.
Oh, that's awesome.
And then I ran out in the middle of the shot and the client just lost it. He was like, oh my gosh.
That's so good.
I was like, you can't see me now, right?
Yeah, that's so good. That's actually how I think I met you. So for my video company, I needed somebody to do on location
I filled in
stuff.
for Joseph Mills.
Yeah.
Joseph Mills was unavailable at the time and I stepped in for you. But yeah, no, it's something else that I'm trying to get into, because here in Kansas City, there's a huge film market and I feel that it's underserved in the audio world as well. So it's one of those other things that I'm like, should I take it on? You know how you're saying, like, do you take everything on? Do you say yes to everything? Yeah. So I've tried dabbling in doing some film mixing.
Nice.
So film mixing and then capturing audio for films and stuff. So yeah, hey, look, I'm 45. I'm going to try everything I can. And if I fail, it's all right.
Totally. Yeah. Right? And I'm there with you, buddy.
Just keep trying stuff, right? I just want to be creative. I just want to be in the world.
What do you got to lose at some point?
Right.
Saying, I could fail, right?
Right.
And then just do something else.
Right. You just learn, like, well, I'm never going to do that again. All right, cool. Move on to something else.
I think the whole, coming a little bit from the film area, I really think the mixing for film is a huge need, especially on an independent level.
Especially on an independent level.
Yeah, it's so forgotten about. It's like 50% or more importance of the quality of a film is the sound, and it's like the thing that we wait till the end, and then it's like, oh gosh, we got to do it. And it's like, I got 2 minutes to mix a film.
Yeah, they get it to the audio guy to mix it, and then they go, okay, we need it in 3 days. You're like, what? Like, and you have no Foley? You have no...
Yeah. I think good luck with that. I think that's awesome. So
yeah.
I'm going to bounce to here. So I did want to touch real quick on this particular picture because you had an interesting story. This is your studio logo, correct?
Correct.
Okay, tell me the history behind this.
The history behind this logo. So my wife and I, for our 25th wedding anniversary, we went to Italy, and I started seeing all these family crests and stuff like that. So I got super interested in my family name, which is Moreno. Mm-hmm. And I started doing some history search and all this kind of stuff. And like, being Hispanic, you start going, well, we're never this regal. No, at least for me, it's like, I'm not this regal. I don't have a family crest, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And I didn't know very much of my family history. So I just started doing research, and I started figuring out that my last name is coming from Spain, does come from Spain. And it actually is the Moors, Moors. And eventually it moved into Moreno. Now, what the name meant, or the last name meant, is dark-haired or dark-skinned, which I fit. What I fit, mm-hmm. If I had hair, I'd have dark hair. Right. So as I was doing research, I found out that we did have a family crest, and this is the family crest. And the only thing that I did different to it was I added an audio waveform in that white space is an audio waveform on the building.
Yeah.
And obviously, took out Moreno out of the banner and put my studio name. But yeah, that's my family crest, and super excited about it. And it's amazing to do some history and figure out who you are.
Yeah, totally, man. Totally. Very cool. So I want to make sure I hit all these. I do want to spend a little time. Whoops, sorry. I want to spend a little time on how do we help you? How do we help? I mean, we'll put I need some links from you to put in the description, but
sure.
What's the best way we can help you?
Best way, I mean, honestly, is, I'd love to do work. Mm-hmm. Keep me busy.
Yeah.
Keep me busy. Use up all the knowledge that I have. Ask me questions.
Yeah.
I love that. I feel, what's the point of me hanging on to things? And if I pass away and nobody ever has learned it or whatever, I mean, it's just, so my wisdom, my knowledge, my experiences are for you to use. And so whatever you need, if you need me to work on something for you, that would be awesome. But at the same time, if you want to learn, I'm here for that as well.
Yeah.
So to help me, just keep me busy.
Yeah. And how do we keep you busy? How do we find Isaac Moreno?
So like I mentioned earlier, I'm on a website called soundbetter.com. I'm also on airgigs.com, and I'm also on Fiverr. Uh-huh. So those are kind of the easy, quick ways to find me. But also email. You can email me at kingdomcomestudio@gmail.com. It's studio without the S, so it's kingdomcomestudio@gmail.com. Shoot me an email if you have a project you need, to work on, a podcast or something. Hit me up.
Yeah, it's awesome. Well, we thank you, Isaac.
Thank you.
So I just want to say quickly, like, I kind of feel like, wouldn't it be cool if we did a live instruction to show off some of your skills? I mean, just like take one of those church templates or something and like do it live. I think there's something in this education piece for you. And let me just be the encourager, because one of my gifts is I encourage people. Like, that's awesome. What I love to do. I see this education piece as just this blaring hot light for you. And I just want to encourage you in that and just to pursue that. And a lot of people need the knowledge you're talking about, but you deliver it so well, and you have such a history that's mixed with respect, and your heart is in it. Your heart is for the other person. So that's my encouragement for you today on St. Patty's Day.
Yeah.
And I want to tell you, I wore this shirt for you, buddy.
And I love it.
It's the only. I had another Star Wars shirt, but I couldn't find it. So you got.
No, I love it. I was gonna wear one too, and then I was like, man, I'd gone a little too far over the edge of being a nerd.
No,
for me.
No, we can see those toys hanging, and Star Wars toys hanging behind your head.
That's all my collection ever since I was a kid, man. So that it's survived.
It's made it. Well, keep it up, buddy.
Well, sure.
Hopefully we can have you back. That'd be awesome.
Well, that'd be great, man. And anytime, and anybody who watched this or is watching this later, again, hit me up.
Yep.
I'm here.
Isaac's
here for you.
All right, buddy. Thanks again. Isaac Moreno, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see you. We'll talk to you soon, Isaac.
All right.